Hello and welcome to Artifacts, the monthly magazine on the arts and what's happening in Minneapolis, co-presented by the Minneapolis Arts Commission. And we've got an interesting show for you this month. Looking forward to some guests. We've got John Sherrell from the Coffee Gallery on Franklin Avenue in South Minneapolis. But before we get to John, we've got two guests here. We've got Steve LaVigne, who's got a very interesting project that I want to talk about. And we've also got Donna Norberg, who's a member of the Minneapolis Arts Commission. Thank you and welcome to both of you. Good to see you. Hi.
Thank you.
Steve, you're involved with a project that sounds fascinating, and I don't want to give it away. I want to hear a little bit about what you're doing.
Well, I'm doing a theater piece, I can't really call it a play, on the history of Cinderella, which people don't realize is more than pumpkin coaches and glass slippers. Cinderella dates back to ancient China. Every culture in the world has at least one version of Cinderella. And what I have done is compiled several of them and put them together as a multicultural, multi-generational theater piece.
Well, right on the face of it, that's fascinating. Now, I'm one who grew up with, you know, the little storybook and the pumpkin and the glass slippers and all that. Can you give us just a little panorama of some of the different Cinderellas that are
Sure,
around?
I can. In ancient China, and as well in Korea and in Vietnam, for example, the Cinderella character doesn't have a fairy godmother. She speaks to the bones of a dead fish. And the bones are eventually transplanted somewhere, and this is how she gets the fabulous clothes to wear and meets the prince. In the Muslim version, at the beginning of the story, Cinderella's teacher convinces her that her mother is a bad woman and convinces Cinderella to kill her mother. And then the teacher marries the father and becomes the evil stepmother, and Cinderella has this cow she has to take care of, and the cow tells her to go into this well, and in the well there's this old woman who accuses her of stealing jewels that she hasn't stolen, and then convinces her that she's a good child and puts a moon on her cheek and a star on her chin. And then the stepsister also does the same thing, but she does steal jewels, so she gets warts on her face. And eventually what happens is it evolves into why Muslim women keep their faces covered.
Fascinating.
And there are other versions as well. In Australia, it's a children's jump rope game. In America, we have three versions that I know of. One of them is American Indian, and one of them is set in Appalachia during World War II. And then also, there's a modern feminist version that was just done recently for the series Free to Be a Family that Marlo Thomas compiled from his magazine, in which Cinderella has everything she wants. The trouble is she cries all the time because no one will ever let her do anything on her own. And so her fairy godmother tells her, well, you know, if she did her homework, maybe she'd be a happier person. And it's a very interesting switch on the original story.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. Now, you're researching a variety of these.
Well, the way this project worked out is I was offered an opportunity to work with children and adults. And my first choice would have been Peter Pan, because I think it's the best children's play ever written. And I've always had this desire to do Peter Pan as an environmental theater piece. But it was done 3 times last year, so they asked me if there was something else I wanted to do. And I said, well, yeah, maybe I'd like to do something with Cinderella. And I brought this project to my creative drama class, and we were rehearsing Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And immediately 13 little girls' hands went up and said, can I play Cinderella? So I started to do the research, and that's how I discovered that there are all these versions. And that's what was the spark. I would not have been interested in a standard Cinderella. It wouldn't have been interesting to me, but this concept of bringing in the different cultures really excited me. So I started to do the research, and the more research I did, the more fascinated with the project I became. I have some friends who said, gee, I'd like to be part of it, so I have purposely found material for them to do that I've worked into the show. Among other things, Rodgers and Hammerstein have given us the rights to the Stepsisters' Lament from their version of Cinderella, and I've worked that into the show. Last week we had a talent show, and this little girl just had this enormously marvelous voice. She opened up and sang, and afterwards I went up to her and I said, would you like to be in this play this summer? And her mother was there, signed her up right away, and I found a song for her to sing, and I worked it into the script.
Now, where will you be doing this?
This will be done, it's through the Wilder School Community Education Program. Every summer we do a program called Sports Arts Olympics, where kids come for 4 hours in the afternoon for 6 weeks, and they have different projects. This is my 4th year doing creative drama. And the project will be presented the 23rd and 24th of July at Pillsbury House, and then on the 25th of July at Wilder School we'll have a matinee. So we'll have 2 evening performances and at least 1 matinee, if not possibly 2. Last year we did the musical Really Rosie, and we were such a hit we had to add a performance.
Well, congratulations. That sounds like a fun project, too. Now, in part, you were funded, as I recall, by the New Presenters Program through the Arts Commission.
Yes, we were. This is our second year getting a grant. We got one last year to produce Really Rosie, which is a musical written by Maurice Sendak and Carole King, in which I had 19 minority children in a musical about kids bored on a hot summer July day. And as I said, we were a smash hit. In 4 performances, we played to 1,000 people. And in 25 years of theater, I've never had a show that was that successful before. So when our director at Wilder, Joan Gilbertson, suggested we apply for a grant again, we did so, and they seemed to be very excited about the project because not only are we bringing in children, especially minority children, we're also bringing in seniors and older adults who will take part in the project as well.
Well, that's great. Donna, now that's part of the Arts Commission's, and I'm going to get the whole name here in if I can. That's the, what's it called?
Minority and Ethnic New Presenters Program.
That's right. Now that's one of
Something along
the
those lines.
programs of the Arts Commission. Can you tell a little bit about how that program works and what kinds of people and organizations, I guess, apply to that sort of thing?
Sure. The Minority and Ethnic New Presenters Program it's a funding program. It's been around for 7 years now. We just did our 7th round of funding on April 27th. We have funded, I tried to figure it out yesterday. I believe it's 145 different projects. And it's a neighborhood orientation, a neighborhood and community orientation. You don't have to be a 501c3 nonprofit tax exempt organization in order to apply for a grant. We do a funding round once a year. We'll have one coming up in December again. And really, what's nice about this particular program is that it's for neighborhood groups, community groups, social service agencies, not necessarily arts organizations per se. I mean, they can be a part of the funding. And it's for these groups to bring in an artist, pay him, he or she, or group, whatever, a fee, and have them do something for their organization, which generally is then open to the public and takes in an even larger part of your community.
Well, now with Stevens, it's a theatrical project, but obviously this can be almost any arts discipline. Or
It can be anything. If you had a daycare center and you you were interested in putting together an environmental playground, you could be working with an artist to do that. That could be something that you ask for funding for. I mean, the organization really, or not the organization, but the Arts Commission and this project is really around to benefit neighborhood groups and community groups and to give people a chance to work with culturally diverse projects that are for the neighborhood to come
Sounds like a very open
take advantage
program.
of.
Yeah, very grassroots
right.
in its
It
origins.
is.
Can you think or share with us any other interesting projects besides Steve's Cinderella project? What kinds of things are coming in?
Well, we had 101 groups that were going to apply for grants this year. Out of that, of course, they don't all get the grant in, but there were 60 proposals that we received. And in our funding round, we were able to fund, we don't have a lot of money, but that money comes from federal, state, and city. And we were able to fund 31 different organizations to do projects this summer. I have these written down, but
Sure.
I want to see if I can remember them. I listed 5. Beltrami Neighborhood Council, along with their Boosters Club, they're doing 3 nights during the entire summer. They're going to be doing 3 evenings of jazz, Dixieland blues.
Okay, so
that'll be
musical
open to the
thing.
public,
Yeah,
right?
Up in Northeast Minneapolis.
Northeast Minneapolis. The MPD, which is Metropolitan Poverty Department, is going to be doing theater, drama workshops in homeless shelters.
Okay.
Thought that was an interesting
Now,
project.
is that a new organization, the Metropolitan Poverty Department?
Yes, it's an outgrowth of the LAPD, which is the Los Angeles Poverty Department, which was recently here sponsored by the Walker Arts Center. This is a spin-off of that, and so we have our own
But
poverty
it's a
department
local
now.
effort.
Yes.
And they've come to the Arts Commission, again, in
Looking for
part to
funding.
get some funding.
Right.
Fascinating.
I do want to mention that, and I think it was on your last show, just mentioned briefly, but the Oak Park Neighborhood Center is in North Minneapolis, is going to be sponsoring a Black Film Festival. And they now have a date on that. It will be June 8th and 9th at Sabathany. And there's a whole schedule for the 2 days, so should
That's
check
right. We
in.
did talk about that last month. I'm
Right.
glad. And they're one of the groups that have subsequently come into the Arts Commission and
Right.
received some funding.
Yeah,
That's great.
they got maximum funding.
Well,
for
in a
their
moment, I want to
project.
get back to Steve with another question or two, but
Okay.
one last thing. How would somebody hear about, or who do they get in touch with if they've got a community-based program and they want to maybe get involved with the new presenters program at the Arts Commission?
Well, if they're, I mean, this is perfect timing because it's time to get out there and create some ideas for whatever your agency is. And along with that, they could call the Arts Commission. I can give you the phone number.
Okay.
And we have a wonderful staff at the Arts Commission. I want everybody to know that. Just a great staff. I think they should be mentioned
Hardworking crew.
sometime. And the number is, can I say it?
Sure. please do.
673-3006. They will put you on a mailing list, and that means that next December, when it's time for us to start this new funding round, the 8th funding round, you will just automatically get a grant in the mail.
Okay.
Not the money.
Not the money, you get the application
form.
or something. That's great. Well, thanks, that's good, and I hope people will continue to take good advantage of that program. I think that's one of the best programs the city's got going.
It's wonderful,
That's good.
and it affects a lot of people with
Yeah.
very few dollars, but
Well, thanks, that's a good lead-in back here. Now, you'll be doing this at Wilder, and that's in South Minneapolis?
Yes, it is, 34th in Chicago.
34th in Chicago, okay.
And then Pillsbury House is 35th in Chicago, so fortunately we don't have to transport the set very far.
That's good. And about how many folks do you see being involved here?
In terms of a cast, I could use a lot more people. I'm expecting 20 to 25 kids, and I could use 10 or 15 more people.
Right.
I'd love to get some more older people, and adults and seniors involved, and I am willing to still audition people.
Okay, yeah, you mentioned besides multicultural that it was a multi-generational show
Yes.
that you'd be working on as well.
Yes, and if they want to audition, they can call Joan Gilbertson at 627-2649 or Lenny at 627-2640. Leave a message for me and I will call them back. And we start rehearsals the 19th of June.
Okay, for a July production.
23rd and 24th are at Pillsbury House and 25th at Wilder.
That sounds good. Look forward to that. Have you, as you've been getting going on this, had any feedback from anybody thinking
Yes.
about this?
Yes,
How's it been received?
I addressed a group of senior citizens who are in an acting class at Wilder, and they were all fascinated by the project. Unfortunately, only one of them has come to audition, and I would love to have more people come to audition. I have 100 speaking parts, so I have plenty of roles for people,
No kidding.
plenty of things for them to do.
Yeah. It's something maybe they'd make part of your audience if they're not going to be up on the
Absolutely.
boards.
That's one of the nicest things about this. We don't charge admission, so we reach a much larger audience by doing this, and I think that's one of the best things. I was so amazed when we did Rosie last year. We had 350 people per performance in our theater, which ordinarily we would have had 120. I've never seen a theater that full before, and it was so gratifying because you reach more people that way.
Well, Steve, thanks, and good luck on the Cinderella project.
Thank
We'll
you.
look forward to it in July.
Yes, please.
Great, thanks. And Donna, from the Arts Commission, thanks for being
it's
here.
been a pleasure.
Good guests.
Thank you.
Now,
Thank you, Phil.
don't go away. In a moment, you'll be seeing an interesting fact about the arts, and after that, we'll bring John Sherrell out to talk about the Coffee Gallery. Welcome back to the second part of Artifacts, and our guest in this part of the show is John Sherrell with the Coffee Gallery. Thanks for coming in and welcome.
Thanks for having
me. Good to
me.
see you. And I just mentioned the name, the Coffee Gallery, but it's a relatively new gallery, as I understand, a few months.
Correct. Almost 2 months old now.
Almost two, okay. Tell us a little bit about it. What do you do there? Obviously, there's some coffee involved, but
True,
it's a
true.
gallery too.
It's a symbiotic relationship of the two. It's a coffee house and an art gallery. We are a local emerging artists gallery, exploring not only the visual arts, but some of the performance arts, poetry readings, puppeteer performances. The coffee side of things supports financially the avenue for presenting local artists and their endeavors to the
So
cities.
the coffee, it literally is a coffee shop.
It is a coffee house, yes,
right?
coffee shop.
Come in, sit down, have
Food
some
and drink.
conversation, and look
Very
at some
much
art
so.
on the wall.
Very much so. A lot of writers have been coming by. We've found a lot of writers in the neighborhood who needed a quiet place to come and think.
Let's mention where you are now. Franklin Avenue.
Franklin, West Franklin, between Hennepin and Lyndale, next to Minneapolis Theater Garage.
Okay, that's right. There's a hill there going up towards Hennepin.
Correct.
So you've got kind of a little arts district almost with your gallery.
It's kind of becoming that. It's interesting. We're definitely between uptown and downtown, and there's always been an interesting faction in that part of the Wedge neighborhood. We're right near the tip, and it's exciting to be part of it.
Well, you mentioned the writers. Obviously, the visual arts are well represented.
Correct.
You've got the actors there, and the Hauser folks are dancing up at
True.
Hennepin there.
True. An endeavor I found out most recently about. I wasn't aware of them before, but
Sounds like there's an opportunity there maybe for some cross-discipline artwork. I mean, now you mentioned writers.
That would be interesting.
Now,
Yes.
what are you doing with writers? You've got...
Last month we had a poetry reading that was an experiment. It went really well. It was a theater, puppet theater, poetry reading, gospel hour. It was very interesting. We found a lot of readers and writers and listeners coming out of the woodwork. And we have another poetry reading coming on the 12th of June. I don't have a concrete lineup, but it should be awfully interesting.
So you program rather eclectically.
Somewhat, yes. We're willing to experiment and try out whatever people are interested in doing. We're even considering proposals for exterior work, as well as
Outside the gallery.
Outside the gallery, as well as installations in the gallery or work to be shown in the gallery. Performances.
Now, in a moment, I want to talk a little bit about the art and the artists that you're representing in there and how you relate, because I think as a business, this is interesting and probably instructive. Why did you end up where you are? You know, kind of the first place people think of in Minneapolis for arts is the Warehouse District. St. Paul's got a lot of arts going on in there. How come from West Franklin Avenue?
A number of factors led us there. The gourmet coffee scene is well supported there. The avenues for exposure are really helpful in that area. The traffic, the amount of foot traffic, the concentration of the people in that area, it's quite dense. We probably explored some 30 locations around the cities, and for various reasons relating to expense, to the local concentration of folks, other elements led us to this location.
See, I have a feeling, and it's just subjective, but that a lot of folks think, oh, there's a new gallery, and don't realize what goes into creating it. There's all that exploration.
Yes.
And I think the fact that you took a look at least a couple dozen, 30 different places, I mean, there's a lot of work that goes on before the doors open.
Yes, some 10 to 12 of those, we went to the city to explore feasibility. We put some money into planning everything from floor plan to who would be our coffee vendor. We went through a lot of things. Being an entrepreneur is an exciting business. I've learned a lot about myself.
Really? So it's not only the art, but it's John Sherrell himself that's...
Well, yes, and I have two partners.
Oh, who are your partners in the gallery?
Lori Harris. She is kind of the brainchild of this endeavor, and Gary Crosby, who brings an interesting twist of satirical humor, as well as some very interesting reading material. He collects and harbors interesting old reading material. Some of which we've established a small...
Now, do you all have arts backgrounds? He's got, sounds like some literary and
a little bit
writing?
literary, yes, correct. Lori has a degree from Madison in the studio arts, and I do from Hamlin in St. Paul.
Okay, so you're an artist as well.
Correct.
Ever see
correct.
your own art up on the walls there?
On occasion.
On occasion.
I'm an oil painter and have done a fair amount of ceramics in the past. I really discovered oil painting about 6 years ago, and really love it. Haven't done any painting since we've opened this endeavor. It's been very
kind of busy with the
very
new
busy.
enterprise.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Well, it's been open a few months, and I want to preview who is coming and who's going to be there in June. But What are some of the shows you've had, and what do you got lined up for June and later in the summer?
We kicked off with 3 local artists, 2 of which were part of a past endeavor called Art Lab, a local emerging artist collective that involved studio space, gallery space, and retail space. That is part of what helped build this project. Out of that project, we've saved the studio, so we still have inexpensive studio space for those who may be interested. The second show was in coordination with the Creeps production over at Minneapolis Theater Garage, a show about people with cerebral palsy for those without. And if you missed it last month, that's too bad. It was a fabulous show.
So there's another connection between your gallery and the theater just down the hill there.
Yes, yes. Hosmer Brown is a fabulous individual who's been very supportive. We've developed a close tie with what goes on at the theater. And that show was selections from a Sister Kenny Institute show by artists with disabilities, and about 2/3 of the work was by artists with cerebral palsy.
Okay, so you connected with the Sister Kenny folks. They do their annual show. And
We hooked up with them on this particular show. We wanted to get involved with what was happening at the Theater Garage, and we were just testing new ground, and they found us same time we found them.
Great.
It was a really nice thing.
Well, what's coming up?
What's coming up? We have a pair of artists who've never met before who are showing for the month of June. William Taylor and Jill Odegaard, 2- and 3-dimensional primordial dream images, an interesting collection of stuff. We have Steve Plummer and David Emblem, who will be showing in July. Their show opens on the 29th of June. In between, a variety of performance and readings. A poetry reading on the 12th, the second Wednesday. A puppet theater evening.
You mentioned that earlier. Now,
Yeah.
what are you working on with puppets?
Well, on the 19th, we'll have our second installation of performance. The puppet show will include Maggotry Puppet Theater and Open Eye Figure Theater. Some very interesting folks who do local
I was going to get asked.
puppeteering.
These are local folks.
Local folks, very much
Yeah.
so. That element of local emerging artist is going to be followed throughout. It's an experiment. I've always loved puppeteering. My days at the Renaissance Festival, I always got sidetracked from my endeavors and watched the puppet shows. Now here's finally a chance to explore what's out there, and hope that any local puppeteers might come to us looking for a possibility of a show.
Well, and it sounds from what you're saying, too, anybody with a creative idea might want to just give you a call and
That'd
see
be
what
great.
could work out.
We are open to anything, installations, 2- and 3-dimensional shows, writers who want to do a reading.
Can we talk a little bit about the relationship you have with the various artists? I know you're very supportive of the local emerging artists. How do you do business with them? What is the arrangement?
We're pretty laid back. We've tried to design a schedule that will accommodate people who walk in with a fresh idea and who are interested in implementing it. These short shows between many of our longer month-long shows will include, let's say, roughly a week-long installation or a variety of possible shows that is designed to work off that impetus, that quick reaction. Hey, this is a neat idea. Let's try it. Let's see what happens.
And it goes up on the wall. These
It
are
goes
items
up on the
for
wall
sale,
or onto the floor or wherever it does.
Yeah?
Yes, the work is for sale.
Okay.
We are selling the work with a artist's favor on the split. If any sales do come around, the money will be put back into the gallery angle of this project.
Okay, so you keep reinvesting into the gallery itself.
Correct, correct.
Great.
We're looking to invest in some lighting and some other elements that will improve the gallery space. It's an experimental space. We hope that people will come to us with ideas and proposals for any number of projects.
Sounds fascinating. The name of the place is the Coffee Gallery. Let's talk about the coffee briefly, because I bet a lot of people watching are saying, hey, it sounds like a good place to go. Do you have a special coffee or a selection that you serve?
We carry Regency coffee. We feel that Timothy Tulloch's enterprise is top-notch. Very good product. We also carry food, light edibles from Bugatza Inc., a fabulous Greek bakery in North Minneapolis. And torts, muffins, and cookies from the Black Forest.
Oh, it sounds
So,
like a nice
local
place to
stuff.
come and...
Yes, very good. Not all sweets. We do have some appetizer pastries, things that people could round off a small meal with.
Okay, a couple more questions before we have to go. This is fascinating. I mean, you've got the food side of it. You've got not just one, but 2 or 3 or 4 forms of art going on. What's your favorite part of it yourself?
The interaction with the people.
Yeah.
We've met a lot of new friends. A lot of people are coming in to us with ideas. It's the interaction, it's the people. I hope to be a place, I hope this becomes a place that people are really comfortable in approaching us, meeting us, giving us their ideas. That's what's most important, is people.
One maybe rather serious question. You know, there's a lot of talk, and you read articles about tough times for the arts. I mean, not just locally, but nationally, all the way. Quick impression on your part. What's your sense of the health of the arts locally, or?
The health of the arts locally and nationally, I think, are very strong. I think it's a strong heartbeat. It's too bad that some of the national institutions are suffering some blows from financial support. But change and strife creates a new sense of drive, I think. And perseverance is important. Support is important.
So generally optimistic.
Optimistic.
That's
optimistic. Good. I hope to be a part of what makes Minneapolis one of the most interesting cities around.
That's great. Now, before we go, what are your hours and where are you?
Aha. 715 West Franklin, between Hennepin and Lyndale, next to Theater Garage. We are open 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 8 to midnight Friday and Saturday, 10 to 10 on Sunday. We will also stay open later for the theater performances in our neighborhood, for those folks to come by afterwards and discuss what they've just encountered.
Sounds good. I hope everybody gets over to the coffee gallery. John, thanks a lot
for
being on
having me.
Artifacts.
Take
Great.
care.
Well, it's been a fascinating half-hour discussion, and I hope you've enjoyed it. This has been Artifacts, discussion about the arts in Minneapolis. Tune in all through the month for this show, and next month we'll be doing more. If you want more information about anything discussed in this show, you can call the Minneapolis Arts Commission at 673-3006. And stay tuned for a moment. We'll have a calendar of events coming up right now. Thank you.